Hi, this is Pete from See Your Toes again, and this is podcast number 27. Now, this is a direct follow-on from podcast number 26 with Connor talking about Crohn's disease. If you haven't listened to podcast 26 already, I strongly urge you to turn this off and choose podcast number 26 and start there, because otherwise none of this story is going to make any sense. Anyhow, I hope you enjoy it and get something out of it. Thank you very much. So you did the carnivore diet for a month and you thought, might have there might be something in this. When did you switch from, because the big thing with carnivore is, because I've been keto for a long time, and I will admit that I've tried sort of carnivore for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And it's a, like you said earlier, it's a big thing to stop eating greens.
Yes.
You must have been the same. It's like, okay, one thing, I didn't go to hell from eating that bit of meat, but everything that I've ever read and listened to people say is that I've got to eat my greens, I've got to have my fibre, and I've got to have my vitamins.
Yes. I was totally sceptic, Pete. I thought the people who were saying you could only survive on a meat-only diet were nuts. I thought that things would have spiraled out of control. I could have got scurvy. I've seen it all, and I'd seen all the kind of anti-carnivore propaganda from a vegan space as well, because even though you started...
Yeah, you would have really had it indoctrinated in you back in those days.
Yeah, and I was totally indoctrinated into the idea that meat was a terrible thing. I thought that meat and animal-based consumptions was the leading cause of all metabolic disease, because that's generally a lot of the theology that surrounds veganism. And this is the proper way that we should eat, and humans were herbivores, etc., etc. I'd heard it all. And it's, now that I can look back and I can compare the arguments, I know it's ridiculous. But my mindset didn't really change. Sorry.
One thing is that if we were herbivores, why haven't we got 6 stomachs? Because, sheep, cows, horses, they've all got multiple stomachs to deal with all of that vegetation. We've got one.
Yeah. And the arguments are pretty poor, but because, again, I was not someone who was medically trained, and I was just someone coming from a desperation point of view. I was looking for a bit of hope, even if I didn't fully understand it. If someone was going to give me a wee bit of hope, just give me that sliver of a chance, I was willing at that point to do anything. So I went pretty intense into veganism, not militant veganism like that. I wasn't telling people just knew I was doing it to try to sort my health, I think I did more to discourage people going vegan around me than anything else, because they seen how bad my health got. I honestly do. When I went in, I was still having discussions with my wife after a month of being carnivore and noticing my mouth ulcers being away and noticing myself not having bloody stools. And I was still saying to my wife, I have concerns that, saturated fat. What about my LDL? What about this? What about that? And these were discussions that me and my wife had with anxiety for the first couple of months that I had to kind of challenge and look into the data. It certainly wasn't overnight that I became comfortable with the idea of eating an all-meat diet. From a health point of view, I became comfortable from a Crohn's point of view because the results were very quick. But from a general overall longevity and health point of view, it took me a while to be convinced that this was something that was actually healthy.
I can imagine you're always thinking, what's around the corner for me? Like you said, scurvy. We all know all the sailors who were on the ships, they all got scurvy, but then all they ate was sardines for 3 months in a row. They had barrels of sardines to eat, and that was it. And so you've got all sorts of things. Where's my vitamin C? Where's my fiber? I'm going to get colon cancer. You've had enough problems with your colon without getting cancer because of red meat chucked in there.
Well, that's the thing as well, and a lot of people don't realise when you have so much damage at the back passage, and in the colon, like a lot of people with Crohn's do, doesn't take a lot for these things here this damage to turn into something more sinister. And it's hard to imagine that there's much more sinister than a lifelong disease, but a life-ending disease is that. It's much more sinister, So I had severe anxiety surrounding colon cancer effectively since I was 12 years old, and I realised because when you start losing blood out the back end, you don't think you think it's what it is, you know.
Yeah, that's right. You go on Google, they'll tell you there'll be 20 things lined up. Blood in stools, they'll all be saying, basically, mate, kiss your ass
Yeah.
goodbye.
You better get a will sorted right now because it's not looking good.
Yeah.
So I was terrified, and you know, it's something that someone who's had issues with their bowels, it's an ever present thing that you think about, because you wonder, is one of those kind of the lesions and the damage that they've seen, could that turn into this? Could that turn into that? And I had that surrounding me, that sense of impending doom, Pete, effectively for 15 years. And don't get me wrong, it took a wee bit of convincing going carnivore that this was going to be beneficial. But really, what convinced me was the fact that for the first time since I've been 11-year-old, I started to have normal, healthy stools. And that people take that for granted. I remember phoning my dad and telling him, and my dad celebrating down the phone he was like, my boy said a solid. That's what he said. You know, I'm going to be honest, it's ridiculous, but that's what it was. It's and people who are around me and have spoke about it, my family members that seen me lose so much weight and seen me lose so much life experience for what things I've missed out on. The fact that I told everyone I started having normal stool, everybody in my family would be like, you better stop phoning me to tell me he's been to the toilet again. And it was normal. And that was what convinced me to go, there's something going on here, and it's a good thing, and it's different to what I've had before.
Wow. So I know this is slightly deviant, but it's kind of deviating, not deviant. That's totally different. What football club would you follow up in Scotland?
Oh, there's only one. I'm a Glasgow Rangers man. So this weekend, it's not confident, I'll be honest. Things have been a bit, but you know, who knows?
Yeah, that's right. So it's a wonder your dad didn't manage to get something up on the main screen on one of your home games there.
You know, and
Connor's had a hard stool.
Listen, I'd have been happy with that in Ibrox. I'll tell you, I was
going to say,
fans.
pop it up on the Ibrox big screen there.
Oh, yeah, that would be. But you know, it's amazing though, because that was one of the things that I never thought I'd be able to do. I remember I went with a couple of friends. I was on immunosuppressants, and they'll actually be able to tell you this. And my wife, she would take us to the closest part you can drop someone off at Ibrox, effectively. And she would wait for 30 minutes up there in case I was unwell and had to go home. I only managed to go to 3 games, went home twice. And one of them I had an accident walking back up to my wife's car. So going to football, something that in the west of Scotland, as a male, you're almost expected to make the pilgrimage to one of the 2 grounds. I'd missed out on that. And I had actually had such severe anxiety about going out because of the amount of accidents I've had. I stopped wearing shorts, Pete. Shorts were not an option for me, just in case. So being able to now, like last year, me and my mates went to nearly every home game after kind of went carnivore from the tail end of the season from August onwards, and not having any issues is a dream. It's a dream come true for me, because I never thought I'd be able to be there experiencing those nights in Ibrox like I did when I was 6 or 7 with my dad as a boy.
Yeah, well, like it's those sorts of things that make you realise, just going to a football game and watching your team playing there is such a biggie. Oh, your alarm's gone off again with your dogs in the background.
Oh, yes, I do apologise about that.
No, that's all right. Okay, so let's get on to the other side of it then, which we talked about briefly, which is, of course, the fat. So with the carnivore diet, you've got your meat, which is great because, of course, you think of all that protein that you weren't getting apart from pea protein, which from what I can gather doesn't have the full amino acid list, so it doesn't help. It leaves a few bits and pieces out.
Yeah.
And you're suddenly eating red meat in the form of steaks and stuff, and you're getting the full amino acid routine going down your stomach. That must have made a big difference to your body.
Yeah, totally. One of the first things I noticed was an energy increase. Actually having the energy to go and want to do things in the house. Because I was actually, prior to coming carnivore, I was off sick from work, long-term sick. So I still was employed, but I was long-term sick because I couldn't travel to work. And I was having so many issues, and with the prospect of having the surgery and being on this pea protein diet that I was expected to be, they were effectively ready to sign me off from work long term, because of how bad it was. So getting the ability to start being able to podder about the garden, to start cutting the grass and doing these wee things that seem a wee bit insignificant. My wife had been doing everything in this house for the year to 2 years prior, because it was nearly 2 years of being really quite unwell, weak, and not being able to do anything. She's coming home from work expecting to having to do all these things and basically care for me as well. And I'm able to do some bits and bobs in the house and do it. So within the first kind of couple of weeks of eating meat, although I was still eating veggies, a massive increase in energy. What I would say to people who have maybe not eaten meat a long time, they want to go back in. I did really well eating steak. The first couple of weeks, I found eating ground beef mince in the UK, 20% fat, was a wee bit harder for me, just in regards to a wee bit of indigestion. And I think that was more so because it was just a little bit fattier, a wee bit more collagen, and I'd just not had it before. That after the third week, I kind of persevered to cut down the amount, made sure I wasn't frying in as much fat just to see what was going on. That totally disappeared after 3 weeks, and now actually the majority of the time I just eat ground mince. But that's one caveat I'd say. If people who try this after not eating meat find that ground mince is a wee bit difficult the first couple of weeks, it will improve. It just, because ground mince, there's a wee bit more collagen. It's a superfood. It's really good for you. I just personally found it initially a wee bit harder, but now it's the number one staple of my diet.
Wow, okay. So therefore you had to figure out how you were going to eat enough fat, because fat is your energy source.
Yeah, and the first thing I did is I started kind of just be eating snacks with a little bit of butter, because I was a bit apprehensive of going anything higher with dairy, because I'd not had dairy in quite some time either. And I know a lot of people who, with Crohn's disease, dairy's just not an option. Even if they're on carnivore, dairy's it's just a struggle. So I went quite high on, not too crazy, but I was having some butter. I was also frying in beef fat. And I started to switch from sirloins to ribeyes and more fattier cuts of meat. And I was really trying to eat as much fat as I could without, trying to add in extra fat, like for example a couple more spoonfuls of beef tallow. I was trying to eat it in as high fatty foods as I could, because I was still worried about an overload of fat causing malabsorption initially.
Yeah, okay. And so most of the fat you were eating therefore was just like the likes of butter and so on. How does that compare now? Obviously you've taken some time to build your stomach up so it can cope with saturated fats and stuff. I take it you don't take the bile tablets anymore. You mentioned that.
No.
Your stomach is producing its own?
Yeah. So only needed that the initial kind of 3 weeks or so. I've still got the majority of the packet down there. And I probably wouldn't have needed it after the first week, personally, but I continued taking it until I felt, I wanted to try. I just wanted to be safe. And I'd seen a lot of people kind of similarly after a month of doing it, deciding to stop taking the ox bile and give their body a chance to see if it can continue the natural production of bile. And I've yet to see anyone that's had to go back on the ox bile since kind of having that approach, which that itself gave me encouragement to give it a try like I did.
Yeah, okay.
And I've not had any issues with fat whatsoever since.
So what sort of fats do you mentioned butter and you mentioned beef fat. What sort of other fats would you eat?
So now especially, I crave pork belly quite a bit. I don't eat a lot of pork unless it's in pork belly form. I love it. I love pork belly. It's for me, it's almost just as satiating as a ribeye. Sometimes I think it's even more so. I know beef's a real superfood, and people don't like pork as much, but pork belly for me is a staple. If I can have a couple of slices of pork belly a day, I feel better. And it's one of the things.
I've got some in the air fryer downstairs at the moment.
Yes.
You reminded me that I threw them on at 3 on the air fryer. I love my air fryer, and they've cooked. And I forgot about them because I got busy with work. So they're waiting for me downstairs. Amazing. I love pork belly.
Yeah, and for me, it's one of the things that I crave so much. So see, some mornings I wake up and I don't feel hungry, and I can easily do one meal a day if work and general life is in the way. I've got other days where, you wake up on a Saturday morning, you just want a couple of bits of pork belly, and it sets you up in your day. You've got such good stable energy eating, these high fatty foods. So for me, pork belly, it might be sacrilege, but that maybe tops the ribeye for me in regards to satiety and everything. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll be upsetting a whole bunch of different people saying that, but
Yeah.
I tend to agree. It took me a while to get back to eating ribeyes and sirloins, only because I'm in Leeds in Yorkshire. In the middle of winter, if you cook up, I cook I cooked a sirloin last week in lard, and that was good. I got it nice and brown. It was still red in the middle. I seared it off really. I was quite proud of myself, to be frank. But
Yeah.
I used to not be able to cook a steak in the winter time because I'd have to open the doors to let the smoke out, or at least let the sort of smell of cooking the steak out. In the summertime, that's fine. Open the front door, the back door, let the air through. But in the wintertime, when it's minus something degrees outside, you don't feel like doing that.
No.
So on that basis, I do consume pork belly at least every second day, I've got to say.
And pork belly as well, it's one of the more affordable meats. I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
And as for me, it's my wife. She's really high fat as well. She's been on a carnivore diet a month less than me for polycystic ovarian syndrome, and she's having great success. She didn't have a natural bleed for 26 years of her life. She is primary amenorrhea, and she just had her first bleed 5 weeks ago naturally using this way of eating. That can't be understated. We're waiting for the next one to come, so we know we're getting more of a regular cycle. But my goodness, it's and it's been amazing. But she's a big advocate for pork belly. I think she would choose pork belly over me at the minute, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I like lamb chops as well. As long as I don't overcook the little buggers, because they can go quite. You can use them as weapons if they're overcooked.
Yes.
But lamb chops I adore.
Yeah.
And pork. What's the other one? Pork. I want to say steaks, but they're not. Shoulder pork.
Yes.
Just, where they're cut into a slice.
Yes. It's delicious. Pork's a fantastic meat as well, and it's obviously, I think it's the most popular meat in the UK, isn't it?
Maybe that's right. And for the vegans out there, of course, the difference, they still won't like it. But if you're buying British pork, the pigs have had a little bit better of a life than they would if they were Dutch pork. Certainly, how Dutch pork was produced 5 or 10 years ago. I don't know whether they've upped their game since.
Yeah, and see, and on that, like, this is something that hasn't left me. I think the ethical stance, regarding veganism, I understand it and I sympathise with it. I don't think animals should be left in terrible conditions at any time. I think that if an animal is to be a food source for humans, they should be treated with dignity and respect, and they should have the best life possible. So I totally agree with that, and I'm totally in solidarity with the idea that animals who are farmed animals for food deserve the best possible life. They deserve to be respected and to be healthy. But at the same time, let's not escape the fact that this is medicine for me. And as much as I love animals, cows are my favourite animals. I stay across from a field here in Scotland. I see calves, I see lambs. I've saved 2 lambs whilst they were trapped in a fence on the road in the last couple of weeks. You wouldn't believe. That doesn't change the aspect that I see that this is the most nutrient dense food for humans, and I have seen so much healing and so much success from people eating this nutrient dense food. And for me, a human life is the most important life. That might be speciesist, people can call me that, but your fellow man is the most important life on this planet, in my opinion. Although that doesn't mean the other ones are not important. We should treat them with respect. But let's not get away with the fact that this is something that's completely natural. And when vegans look at nature and they see what we do, they'll be stunned, because you go see what happens in nature. There'll be a leopard will eat a monkey's baby in front of the mother monkey, then eat the mother. And, we just need to realise that nature and the food, the food chain itself and everything here it's not a nice thing. We see it all around the world, and it's the bigger, more advanced hunter always wins.
Yes, that's right, which is why we learnt to carry spears so we could run away from that saber-toothed tiger.
Yes.
Who wanted to make a meal out of us. And that's the thing. Over the last 600,000 years, we have eaten meat. We've also eaten some vegetation, but not a hell of a lot, I would suggest, until maybe 1,000 years ago when we started actually growing the stuff. But before then, if we were nomads, we would have been wandering around and scavenging a bit of vegetation here and there, and of course lots of berries in summertime, so we could fatten up for winter.
Yeah.
Which is a problem with obesity, of course, because we were designed to fatten up for winter, and now we just fatten up forever with the same sugars. Another story altogether. We shan't go down that rocky road. So that's pretty amazing. So you have now been carnivore for how long?
So officially strict carnivore for 16 months. In 5 days' time, we'll be on to 17 months now. And
okay. And no sign of scurvy?
Oh, surprisingly not. No, surprisingly I've not died yet either. Although I was told that I might have died a few times.
Okay, we laugh. I'm sure a lot of people, because that is the big thing. And it's understandable. You know, we all. I'm not going to tell you how old I am. You can just guess that one. But anyway, when I grew up, we were told that saturated fats are bad, salt is bad. Then the thing is, as it turns out, that because we all went on to a fairly high carbohydrate diet and we ate margarine instead of butter, because butter was bad because that was a saturated fat. So we ate margarine, which is a processed product.
Yeah.
And we ate lots of bread, and then we were allowed to eat lollies and things. Sweets and stuff. All of the sugary drinks and everything else. And next thing, of course, colon cancer started going out, rocketing up. So then somebody said, right, we need to eat more fiber. So then we had to all eat more fiber. Still not eat saturated fats. Still not eat red meat. And that's how our lives, and don't eat salt either, because salt will give you high blood pressure, and that's going to kill you. So we all grew up with that, and then all of a sudden apart from the fact that society as a whole is about as unhealthy as it has ever been in history, but luckily we've got the medical people to keep us alive for longer.
Yes.
And suddenly it's like, well, how do I not get all these metabolic diseases? I mean, what would your life have been like when you were 6 or 7 years old and you were on a high saturated fat, high meat diet with not that much? You may still have got a little bit ill, but if you know what I'm trying to say here, the big what if. What if you were, say, carnivore from when you were 5 years old?
Yeah, I can only go with what I've experienced now. I'm nearly 17 months carnivore and I'm 12 months medication free. I had to take 2 further infusions because that's the procedure. You have to just finish what you were doing. Although I said after the first month on carnivore, my stomach had started to totally regulate. I no longer had ulcers in my mouth. My skin issues cleared up prior to the month ending, and in general my health has recovered after kind of 2 months of being on carnivore. Most of the visible ailments that people would have noticed were completely away. I can only imagine if I was put on that at 5 years old and I wasn't eating a standard diet that all children at that time in Scotland were eating, the school foods that we were getting and the nonsense that we were eating at all times. I definitely don't believe the severity of my condition would have ever come close. I certainly don't believe my mental health would have been affected because saturated fats and eat so many amino acids and so much nutrients based in meat and animal products are essential for healthy mental health development. I also don't believe I would have been stunted at a growth of 5'7", if I'm honest. I would have been maybe more so like the previous generation, like my mother's brothers who were 6'7", 6'6", 6'4", 2 brothers. One was a soldier, big strapping fella. You look at these guys and you look at me, you think, oh, what's happened here, me being the youngest boy? you know. So I definitely don't think I would have had that. And you know what? I really think I would have been I wouldn't have missed out in what I missed out on throughout school. One of the things that always comes to mind when we were in second year, we would go to school trips to Alton Towers and stuff like that. Here in the bus, of course, I didn't go. It wasn't an option. I had to do my exams in a private room with an adjudicator with a toilet next door, and the adjudicator would be with me. I was not allowed in the hall because I would have to go to the toilet during the exam. I didn't get to go on holidays with the school, and eventually it became so difficult for us to go on family holidays. And so my brothers and sister missed out as well because I was always unwell. We went to Turkey one year and I was in a massive flare-up, and I'm sure, as you can imagine, you take some medication with you, but you're in a foreign country, there's already limited in how you can eat, and you're not well. It's very difficult. So I think anxiety for my mum and dad, certainly would have been massively reduced, and I think I would have a much better standard of existence, at least for the 27 years. Since 12 till I was 27 that I struggled. I also believe that definitely that my mental health, the anxiety and stuff would have never got as bad if prior to it spiraling out of control I was put on a diet that was protective for mental health. I didn't know that certain nutrients only found in animal products were essential to regulate mental health and your cognitive function. And I basically did what was the worst possible thing for my condition and for my mental health that was already struggling through what was incorrect propaganda online. So yeah, I don't think it would have got as severe. I certainly couldn't guarantee that because no one can.
No one can go back with a crystal ball. No,
of course, but for me, I think it would be it's more understandable and more believable to imagine without it being bad as it was. If I was to do that, it would have never got that bad. I think it's more unbelievable to believe that I was genuinely 16 to 20 weeks away from having surgery, and I was demanded to be on a 3 to 4 month liquid diet. And within 2 months of being on a strict carnivore diet, all of my issues and my inflammation markers had started to regulate and become resolved. That's more unbelievable than the idea that if I ate this from a young age, it wouldn't have came.
And talk about looking down the barrel of the gun.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, if you had not made this alteration, you'd end up with a bag attached to your ass for the rest of your life.
Pete, if I didn't make this alteration with where my mental health would be, and I'm just going to be completely honest with you, and my wife we've had some tearful conversations regarding this now in reflection, which is still something we commonly do. I wouldn't be here, and she understands that as well.
Yeah.
My standard of living was so bad that a bag would have made it better, but it wouldn't have resolved it, and it would have went from me having to put that out my back end to me having to change a bag 6 or 7 times a day, getting sores around the area for the bag, still having the weight loss and the skin conditions and the general fatigue, and also the bad mental health. The second time me getting hospitalised was for that reason. There was massive concerns about my mental health and my general safety, and that was twice. And I cannot stress this, and what I say is this for me has given me a life worth living. I didn't have that, and I can say this with my hand on my heart in front of God. If I was still as unwell as I was, and I was having to get the bag and it wouldn't have improved, I don't think I would be here.
Yeah. Okay. How have the doctors reacted? So all the doctors who are giving you all that medication, all the people that said here's your pea protein liquid diet for the next 16 weeks, and everything else, how have they reacted in any way?
Yeah, so firstly, initially when I had said to them that I'm opting not to go on a pea protein diet and try to change this, they thought I was mad. There was certain conversations I had to speak with my CPN because I was under mental health evaluation as well. So I was not just someone who was deemed, capable of making a decision for themselves at this point. There was a big emphasis in family members coming with me to appointments so the doctor could convince the family members rather than me because they felt like they weren't getting through to me. What the response I had the first couple of months since going carnivore was, this could be generally the course of turn that your condition has, and this is expected to get worse. and this will make it worse. So I had a lot of negativity from the start. The only one I would say was an IBD nurse that I'd worked with since I'd went 16. I'd go out of York Hill, who I'd maybe been a wee bit more kind of open and personal with about my mental health as well. Because a gastroenterologist doesn't care about your mental health. I seen Dr. Radhakrishnan the most every 4 weeks at his severest, every kind of 3 months when it was just general on medication, as is the NHS. He's seen many people with my condition. So when I told him I was going to try to do it my own way, again, he had the response where it was lunacy. I'm going to make myself worse, and I'm going to do more damage and prolong the process of me getting this back. So the response was one which I think if it wasn't for my wife's support and saying, give this a go, I think I would have caved into it, because I was scared. I was terrified. I didn't want to make it worse. But my wife says that the alternative isn't a life. Having the bag isn't going to sort your issues. It's just going to be another thing we need to deal with, which comes with other issues as well. I was reading horror stories of people who were out in work and their bag was leaking, which is a very common thing. It makes having relations with your partner almost, very difficult. I don't think my wife, as she always says, if this is the best thing for you, and we came to terms prior that it would have been before we even knew about the carnivore diet, I don't think it would have bothered her, but I'd have been embarrassed taking my t-shirt off and doing things. So it definitely would have gave me a self-confidence issue if I didn't already have one from the previous years of all of this. So the response was definitely one of pushback, mass pushback. The only one I would say was kind of in my corner, other than my family, was an IBD nurse who I no longer work with. Of course, she's left. And she had said that, give it a try. You can't ignore your symptoms. If this is making it worse, you need to admit you're wrong. She was very forefront and said this might not work, and you can't go into this thinking it's going to work, because I don't want you to get disheartened, because there was obviously the other side of it with the mental health. We didn't want me to go lower than where I was at that time, because I was already concerned. So they were trying to protect me from myself in certain points as well. But they weren't supportive of the idea. The gastroenterologist 3 times tried to refer me to dietitians. 3 times I had, after I said I was going to go carnivore. Might I just add, before that, they never tried to refer me to a dietitian like that at all. And I was losing weight. I was requesting pea protein. I was requesting drinks to supplement my diet, not pea protein itself, because I was losing so much weight. I was desperate. I need a food replacement because I can't absorb anything. They would give me, the gastro doctor would give me that. They never tried to put me over to dietitians until I mentioned the carnivore diet. And I had discussions with dietitians. They told me in no uncertain terms that a high meat diet with no fibre will inflame my condition. It will make it worse. It's also going to have a general negative outlook on my longevity, everything like that. And it would put me at further risk. Even though I was at a higher risk of colon cancer, it would put me at an even further risk. So these were the discussions I had within kind of starting carnivore, discussing it, and then the kind of first couple of months in between, getting infusions and speaking to dietitians. So the pushback was severe. It was almost like they were all pushing towards it. You had CPNs who were saying you need to listen to your gastroenterologists and you need to do what's best for you. Going on a diet that's restrictive, if it doesn't work, will make your mental health worse. This is going to make your physical health worse. This will kill you. So yeah, I was not supported whatsoever in the process from doctors.
Yeah. And so how did they react then as the months went by afterwards?
So the first couple of months afterwards, I seen Dr. Radhakrishnan after the 4th month on carnivore. He did my inflammation markers. He was astounded that my inflammation markers were lower than they had been when I was on immunosuppressants 4 years prior, which was the kind of lowest it had been. He straight away noticed I'd started to put on weight, and he says I was looking better. I had a better complexion in my face. I was always very pale. I was really quite struggling. He also had said that just generally I seemed more upbeat, more confident in how I was speaking. And he says he doesn't suggest it or support it, but in this case for me, it has been successful to a degree. Although he was certainly very sceptical about the long term success that this could offer me. He certainly, and even still today, because I'm still under IBD nurses and I'm still under gastroenterologists, and I got an MRI done August last year that it showed that lesions had started to heal in my small
wow.
bowel, and that in my back passage I no longer had the damage that I had. So that was astounding, and I've had some very good conversations with IBD nurses since. I've had a couple of IBD nurses who have said that I'm not the only person now that they've spoke to who are trying to adopt in this part of the world an all meat or a majority meat diet, and they're trying to cut out plant foods. They're not going to tell me whether they suggest it or promote it because they can't. But it's been
No,
very,
that's the thing.
but it's been very heartwarming to realise that there's people who are also speaking to these medical professionals and they're noticing a pattern, and that's only a good thing because the more success they see, it's going to force their hand to change a couple of things.
That's right. And if they get to the stage, if these professionals get to the stage to say, hey, I can't say yes, but I'm not going to say no.
Yes.
Because at the moment you had no, 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 no. But that's because they've also, let's face it, these people have got their professions on the line, and we've heard about doctors and so on who have been taken to court for suggesting how they feel as opposed to suggesting another medication.
Mm-hmm.
And so doctors, they're between a rock and a hard place. So if they stop saying no, 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 no,
Yeah.
and say, professionally, I have to say no, but
yeah, exactly.
Off the record, I wish you good luck. Then that's a big step forward.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I was actually really, really, really impressed with my last conversation with the dietitian, who had basically said to me, listen, I'm no longer going to be giving you a call and organising this because what you're doing is working for you. And it doesn't make sense from the literature, but you're having healthier blood markers, you're having healthier scans, your inflammation markers, as they said, is the lowest they had been, even whilst I was on medication. And he just told me to keep up the work I was doing. And for me, that was almost a wee period, a wee point of validation. I'm thinking there could be a wee tide turning here, and this is where professionals are going, this is interesting. He's doing something that's out of the norm, and he's having great success. So I definitely think from the people I spoke to directly, I've piqued interest within the NHS, especially this area, and I think people are astounded with the results. And I think that was more concrete with the fact that when I had the MRI, this was the thing. When I had the MRI, we had the previous ones to compare them to. That was very much a common thing for me. I would have MRIs and colonoscopies, and when they seen the difference from the MRI and they organised the colonoscopy, which showed that the back passage was almost entirely healed. I wouldn't say normal because there's got to be scarring there, and that's just what it is.
Yeah.
You know, that for me and for them was a wee turning point where, you know, let's not tell this boy to stop doing this, and let's just monitor it accordingly. And I've been very lucky with the fact that I have been, at the very least, not bombarded from that point with stop this, we need a dietitian appointment, eat a balanced diet.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. It really is. If you had told yourself this 3 years ago, of course, you would have said, "Don't be stupid."
No, absolutely. I think, see, the idea for me to be able to go do hikes and go do the West Highland Way, multi-day hikes away from home, and go back to work using public transport. For me, that's probably the biggest difference. I'm able to get a bus to work. My wife takes a car. I'm able to do that. I'm able to walk to work. I'm able to keep a job and be stable. I'm able to go do driving lessons now. Might be a bit old to pass, but I'm getting things that I couldn't do prior. I'm now getting to do that. And if someone was to tell me that I would wake up daily, do the toilet once a day, twice a day, it'd be normal, not see blood at all for over a year, no longer have mouth ulcers, be physically fit enough to go start lifting weights and started judo at the end of last year. I know you'd mentioned that.
Yep.
So I've got a grade in the next couple of weeks for my yellow belt, so I'm a novice, but you know, getting there.
Hey, you've got to do your yellow belt before you can do any other belt.
Yeah, so absolutely.
That's great. Yeah.
So me and my wife, she started with me as well, and it's something that, you know, this is stuff that I dreamed about. I would sit at home, watch sports, watch the football, watch things like MMA and stuff, and I would dream about the opportunity to go watch it in football, to go train, and it was a dream. I was never going to be able to do it. You know, I was just going to be this guy who watches sports but can't partake. And now I'm the guy that just does sports all the time, and it's all I talk about, and I'm always active. And for me, that's not only had a massive impact on my mental health. I'm at a point now where I've never felt better, and I wake up every day grateful, because I know that this is not a normal thing that most Crohn's sufferers, when they go through the standard kind of treatment, usually ever get. Especially a year of being symptom free, that doesn't happen. If you look at it, it doesn't happen at all. People are having frequent flare-ups, maybe 2 or 3 within that period. And I would have probably had close to 4 or 5 within that period if the year before had been anything to kind of relate to. So, you know, I'm just, when I say I'm the luckiest man in the world, people think I'm being kind of cliche and cheesy there.
Melodramatic, that's right. Yeah.
Well, exactly. But when you come from a place where you don't want to be here anymore, you can't do the things that you love, you can't go work, and other than working from home jobs, you had no option. Even a working from home job's hard when you're down to the toilet 30 times a day. You know, being able to compare my life now to how it was then, you couldn't believe it. It's like every dream and every prayer that you've said throughout the years when you've been struggling, you've missed out in doing these things with friends, you've missed out in these experiences. It's like it was all remembered. It was all remembered, and I've had everything I've wished for and more this last year. And it almost, with how good I feel now, it makes me grateful that I struggled through that and I was able to get through there, because it means that it was all worthwhile. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, that's brilliant. What would you say to somebody with Crohn's at the moment? What would you say to them?
I would say that they're worth having a life that's pain-free. They don't deserve to be having constant and consistent flare-ups and being in pain and being at the behest of medications that are very harsh on the body with side effects. And I would suggest for those that are sceptical of it, give it a go. I think that there's great power in reducing the amount of leafy greens in the plants that we're eating, and having more nutrient-dense foods that your digestive system is really good at digesting. And for anyone with Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, or even severe IBS, if they need a wee bit of advice in regards to what I've done with my food, how I was eating and stuff, I'm so reachable on social media, and I take great kind of pride in being able to speak to as many people who suffer from gastro issues as I can, to offer as much advice. But I think the main thing, to summarise, these people who are suffering from Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, and even severe IBS, don't have a good standard of life, and they deserve a good standard of life, and it's certainly obtainable if we take the jump and we back ourselves and we try something here that's a proper human diet, but a proper dietary protocol to tackle autoimmune conditions.
And it is a huge leap of faith that people will have to make, as did you. So my suggestion, I guess, to add to that would be just give it a go for a month. Just think of it as, I'm going to do this for 2 weeks even. I'm just going to give this a go for 2 weeks, and I'm going to see what happens. If it doesn't suit me after 2 weeks, and I know that I've given it a good shot, then I can always think about going back to how it was. But 2 weeks and you start seeing results, I'm sure you'll start thinking, okay, let's do this for another 2 weeks and see how we get on.
Yeah, and at the very least, if people do this and they start to increase their meat intake, at the very least, the majority of the things that their body's producing is not going to have a negative effect. And I think that's it. I think we're trying to get as healthy as we can. Some people are going to be a bit apprehensive about the idea of going carnivore. 30 days in the grand scheme of things is a very short time, and I can almost guarantee that people who are even in a flare right now, or even with stable Crohn's disease, who would have loose stools commonly, that within 2 weeks you're going to see a massive improvement in your gut motility, you're going to see a massive improvement in your digestive system, and no medical literature, no anecdote you're going to see online is going to be more powerful than your lived experience, and you're capable of having that. And I believe that anybody that gives this a try after 2 weeks will know that there's power in this way of eating.
That's amazing. So where can people go to find you? Incidentally, Connor, I will put your X address on the show notes so people can look on there. But where can people find you?
Yeah, so the best place is X, formerly Twitter. So the handle there is at Crohn's Carnivore. You'll see me there with one of the dogs standing. You can also get me at the same address on Instagram as well, although I am more reachable on X. I just do prefer the platform. You can also find me for Carnivore for Crohn's on YouTube. Just started that up this week. So there'll be some good content on there. Maybe a wee bit more specific to the carnivore diet, but a big kind of emphasis on people who have had metabolic issues, similar to what you do, Pete. What you do fantastically, might add, and just some good discussions with people, just really trying to spread as much awareness. So that's the best places. If you reach out to me, I'll definitely do my best to get in contact with you and see what I can do to help. And if I'm not qualified to help, or if I don't know enough, I can certainly point you to people who may be a wee bit more qualified within the community if it's nothing related to Crohn's disease.
Yeah, cool. Excellent. Well, it's been bloody brilliant listening to you, mate. It's one of those stories that is hard to believe it's true. You know, it's and you're living proof, living testimony of how something as simple as what you eat can make such a. And this isn't the first time. I had Valerie the other day. Yeah. We had a lady with Donica with her mental health group using keto. It's amazing what food can do to people, but your story in particular is amazing. So thank you very much, and good luck with the future.
No, Pete, I really appreciate you giving me the time here. You do fantastic work and you're spreading awareness for the benefits of a ketogenic stroke carnivore diet for so many issues. So no, please keep it up, and I'll make sure that to share this far and wide so people can see your content as well.
Much. Yeah, thank you, mate.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Thank you for listening to podcast number 27. That's the end of our podcast on Crohn's with Connor. I will post Connor's contact details in the show notes if you want to get in touch with him. He's on X, and I believe he has a YouTube channel. If you want to know a bit more about carnivore and keto, I have a book on keto. It's not on carnivore, but it's on the ketogenic diet. It's called See Your Toes Again. It's on Amazon, and it's roughly, it's a bit under £10 for Brits, and sort of a bit under, I think it's a bit under $11 US. So that's also called See Your Toes Again, same name as this podcast. And that goes through it's about 200 pages, and that goes through all of the ups and downs of the ketogenic diet and how you can get into it and what you can expect, all the tears and tiaras that go with it. So have a read of that if you want more information. Thank you for listening, and I hope to have you here again. Thank you.